Hi, this is Daniel O'Connor and this is a really quick guide on how to deliver a station amnesty. We're going to go through what a stationery amnesty is. We're going to highlight why it's important and some of those reasons you might not occur to you at the first glance. We're going to talk about how we're going to approach this. We're then going to go through a 10-point plan and then going to summarise and show you the free resources that are available from us to download. So what's a stationery amnesty? Basically, everyone in your organisation has a couple of staplers in their drawers, okay? And staplers cost £3 to £4 each, or $6 to $8 each. And you've probably got 1,000 or more staff in your organisation. That adds up to quite a lot of surplus assets that are out there worth a bit of money, okay? So it's high volume, low value assets, which we're after here. What we do is we invite staff to empty their drawers, declutter their cupboards, bring all that surplus to one point and then redistribute it, okay? So why are stationery amnesties important? Well, obviously they save money, yeah, and they reduce environmental impact because they reduce procurement, they reduce the unnecessary procurement of stationery that you've already got, but also stationery amnesties can act as a keystone habit. And a keystone habit is one of those habits that your staff can take on, okay, which then affects other working areas of their life. So for our focus being the reuse of surplus assets, the stationery amnesty can be like the first step towards doing a more developed, more complex reuse of surplus assets across the estate. For example, changing keystone habits in organisations is difficult, okay? This chap, Paul O'Neill, was a new CEO at a company called Alcoa, which is in the aluminium industry. The industry was in decline, and Paul O'Neill didn't focus on bringing in more revenue or increasing more sales or whatever you'd normally do to rescue your organisation. What he did was he tackled health and safety. And he tackled health and safety because nobody can argue that improving health and safety is a bad thing, right? So he tackled health and safety first, and he made the company extremely safety conscious. And when the staff absorbed those habits and developed those habits in being safe, it had a knock-on effect on everything else in the organisation. So the quality of the product went up. Because the quality of the product went up, sales went up. And when the academics have analysed this process, they realised that when Paul O'Neill introduced the safety features and the safety controls, that's when the organisation started to recover from its slump, okay? So safety was a keystone habit. So what's the approach to this? So stationery amnesties, we like to roll them out incrementally. So we do an office or a building at a time, okay? And what you do with that is, the benefit of that is when you do one property or one building, you deliver the stationery amnesty and you learn. And when you go to the next one, you can implement those learnings, okay? So it's test, improve, deliver, okay? Now, another really good aspect of this approach, the incremental rollout, is you can actually create a demand or a waiting list for a stationery amnesty, and humans go crazy. So this incremental rollout creates a demand because, people can't wait for it to come, so there's a waiting list. And then once there's a waiting list, it's just like any restaurant. If you're walking down the street and you see a restaurant that's full of people with a little queue outside of it, versus a restaurant that's empty with no queue, you're going to go to the one with the queue, okay? So you're going to create a demand for your amnesty, okay? Then you monitor the impacts from a savings point of view. When you've got that evidence, you can illustrate the benefit to others, and then you start to repeat that process, okay? And remember, stationery amnesties are a keystone habit, so at the end, you're looking to develop either bigger reuse projects or more sustainability activities, okay? We are going to do the top 10 steps now. So first one is, there's going to be barriers. There are going to be people that say, yeah, we tried this before, this isn't going to work, yada, 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 all of that sort of thing. So you've got to be prepared for that, okay? And you've got to be prepared for it and have a plan if things go wrong, okay? So you've got to develop like a thick skin, and you've got to develop like a reaction to the people who are going to say this with, some logic behind your argument. Step 2, set a goal, yeah. Define what success looks like. That is, we're going to do 10 buildings this year, or we're going to finish our first pilot before October. And the really handy thing with this is, try to align it with an existing strategy, okay? So if you've got a sustainability strategy or a resource use strategy or a procurement strategy, which says something along the lines of reduce procurement or reduce purchasing or develop a sustainable purchasing plan or whatever, align it with that strategy, okay? That helps to bring senior management on board, and it shows them that you're not deviating from the path. Now, like any project, you need to develop a plan, who's going to deliver what, by what time, what the actual milestones are, all that sort of thing. So sit down and develop a plan. Step 4, break that plan down into milestones. So you're going to break down the project into significant milestones, right? And the benefit of breaking down into milestones is, is that you can set deadlines, okay? And you want to really set very short deadlines, because you set a deadline in the future, nothing's going to happen until 2 or 3 days before that deadline, okay? So just set short deadlines with small milestones, okay? That way you feel like you're winning, okay? Because you've got mini wins each time, so you feel like you're winning, you keep that momentum up, okay? So we're now going to break the project down into milestones for you. Step 5. First thing you want to do is develop your pilot stationery amnesty. So pick one office, pick one building, or pick one floor, whatever distinct unit you want to use, okay? Probably the best one to do is your department, okay? So the department that you have most contacts and networks in, okay? You need to pull a team together from that department who are involved with stationery. That might be a stationery procurer, it might be the person who manages a stationery cupboard, it might just be some interested stakeholders, certainly someone from procurement, maybe someone from sustainability, maybe someone from waste, okay? Maybe someone from logistics. And we're going to do a pilot stationery amnesty in your department first, okay? Now, once that's done, we publicise the results, and then you get your second pilot. And as you're doing your second pilot, that's when you start developing your waiting list for the next buildings or rooms to get a stationery amnesty, okay? Remember, you're creating demand there through scarcity. So how we're going to do it? Now, this will change depending on your work scenario. You might have an open plan office, nobody might have drawers, or you might have an old type office where everyone's got their own stationery. You might have a stationery cupboard. So this is just a guide, okay? You've got to develop a local plan which works within your organisation, okay? Top tips. You've got to make this fun. You're going to have, you should, because you're doing this in an incremental fashion and attacking it in office by office or building by building format, you're going to have nice communication materials, which we're going to feed into and give you some examples of. Banners, pull-up banners, wall banners, posters, email signatures. So you're hitting the staff and you're telling them exactly what's going to happen, okay? You're telling them exactly what's going to be expected of them, okay? So make it fun. Get on Twitter, create your own hashtag, do a competition around photos, and do a coffee morning where everyone can bring their stationery, all that sort of thing. So, just think creatively and make it fun. Now, this is the crux of the Stationery Amnesty. You need to collect in all of that surplus stuff, okay? And the humble copy paper box is your friend. The lid and the box. So start hoarding these items now. And what you do is, you put a label on each one saying stapler, one saying pens, one saying calculators, one saying, lever arch files or whatever. And you would get your staff to come to a central point and drop off their stuff in these different labelled up boxes, okay? Now these boxes can follow you around your estate doing your amnesties, and they're a great example of reuse. Obviously, if you want to go for the plastic box, if you're going to do a stationery amnesty, a rolling stationery amnesty over a couple of years, then get yourself a plastic box. But you've already got the resource that's surplus in your organisation, so demonstrate reuse with this, okay? Now, next thing to do is tot up or total all of those assets, okay, and put them onto your reuse system. Now, your reuse system might be an email news ring, it might be a message board, or you might have an online platform like the one I'm going to show you right now. So I've logged into our reuse platform, okay? You can use other reuse platforms, but I just want to show you how it happens with our reuse platform. So to add an item, okay, click on add an item. Do a snazzy title. Start putting in stapler and the The system will guess. So stapler. Now let's pretend we've got 150 staplers. Okay. Condition is fair. Location is my office. They're available from today, and let's just advertise them for a couple of weeks. Now, if you have a photo, you can upload it, obviously, but if you don't have a photo, you can click it from the photo library. And let's just so we've added staplers, okay, we've added those staplers. Now, you're probably going to have some lever arch files. We'll recategorize that as files. Put in lever arch files, boxes, folders, lever arch files. Let's do that. Great. So let's pretend we've got loads of them as well. Let's see, we've got probably going to have a lot of them. We'll take that picture of the stapler off, and this will now search the photo library for lever arch files. Perfect. Same details. So we added those files. Next thing we do is click add an item, and those files will go into the system. Okay, so that's how we add items on our system. Okay, obviously yours might be different. I'll talk a little bit more at the end about how our system works. Next step is you've got to track those savings. Okay, so on our system we track them automatically, but you might have to work it out on a spreadsheet. But once you've got the value, say after you've delivered your stationery amnesty after 2 weeks or a week or however long you want to run it for, tot up the values that you've saved. Okay, then you use that evidence, put it in your spreadsheet, use that evidence to develop a business case for more resources to put into Stationery Amnesties. Okay, so you make your Stationery Amnesties much better, much more user friendly, much more into a process, much more automatic. Okay, and after you've done 20, 15, 10, whatever, 10 Stationery Amnesties, then you're going to have a really significant value there, and you use that evidence to strengthen policies, change behaviour around reuse. Okay, because you've demonstrated to the senior management and to the staff, how reuse can work, how much money you can save. Okay, so you need to be telling everybody about those savings, especially in the pilot, then the other projects afterwards. You need to tell everybody about it. So you need to do a newsletter, send the newsletter out, tell them about your crazy target that you set right at the start. So it's like, we want to divert X amount tonnage or finance, or we want to hit this many buildings, all that sort of thing. And remember, my top tip is you can create a demand for the Stationery Amnesty by using scarcity. So only letting a few buildings have releasing the project building by building creates this waiting list. When there's a waiting list, there's a demand for it. So you create a demand through scarcity. Okay, so that's step 10. Bonus step 11. When you've done your series of Stationery Amnesties and you've done all that evidence, and you've got all that evidence, now you can use that evidence to develop other reuse campaigns. So you might want to do a declutter campaign next, for example. Okay, now let's talk about the free communications we're going to get. So after this session, if you want, you can go to our website, or you can email me, and we can give you some communication materials for this subject. We'll give you an action plan with all the milestones, and I'm here for help and advice as well. Okay, so I'll just dip out and show you the communications we're going to be sending out. So we've got these posters, okay, which you can edit, and these can be made into wall banners as well. We've got some to make big wall banners, and we've got ones to make pull-up banners as well, and we've also got email signatures. So get in touch to get those communication plans and the action plan. Okay, so a little bit about Warbird Reuse Network. This is where you can get in touch with me to get the communication materials and the spreadsheet for with the action plan with milestones on. Okay, a little bit of information about Warbird Reuse, which is what we do. So it's an online platform. It allows staff to collaborate with each other on surplus assets. We also, as well as allowing internal trades, you can trade between large organisations. It looks just like this. So it sits on your intranet site. We track the savings that your platform is making, which is obviously important for senior management and staff to increase participation. We show everything in an online marketplace, so staff can get a visual on what other organisations have surplus staff can get a visual on what other staff and other organisations have surplus to requirements. Okay, so it's just like eBay, just like Amazon. That's what it looks like. We track all the trades, we know who put it on, who took it off, what the value was. It's not just furniture, it's anything goes, electricals, stationery, even vehicles and uniforms. We have two techniques which mean that you don't really need storage for this system. So there's a thing called wish lists. So if I search for cabinet and I don't find a cabinet, I can add cabinet to our wish list. Then if anybody puts on a cabinet, I get an email saying, right, so-and-so's got a cabinet. So what that does is that introduces the donator with the recipient directly. So there's no need to move that asset into the store. It goes from A to B, not A to store to B, which reduces double handling. Another really popular feature is what we call the watch list. That's when, if you're doing a building clearance, let's say the building clearance comes to fruition in May next year. If you're doing a building clearance, then staff can actually get a visibility on what's going to become available in the future, and they can add it to their watch list. Okay, and again, what that means is when that asset becomes available, it goes from A to B, not A to store to B. And another bonus of that is the building clearance manager can actually see how many people are watching those assets, so it can match up needs and wants in the future. And we have a big charity aspect to this. Charities get the system for free. And of course, we track the savings, and the savings are really important for getting senior management on board as well as staff. Okay, that's carbon, weight, donations to charity, internal savings, all that sort of thing. So that was a quick overview of Warbird, and that was a review of a stationery amnesty plan. Okay, I explained why stationery amnesties are important, why you should do one, and then to explain our approach, or the best approach we've realised over the last few years. I then took you through a 10-point plan. I then showed you the communication materials. Email me to get the communication materials or the spreadsheet with the milestones on. Have a good day.